Don't fucking do it.
Oh.
Don't be a bitch.
What about...
No. Don't. You're going to review it. You have to. Just don't. Stop.
What about this?
Don't be a bitch.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
Well, you have to.
I'd rather watch King Ghidorah 3 times in a row.
Do it. Do it.
But I don't want to. Come on, this. Can't you see how pretty this knife is?
Yes, I see how pretty the knife is. But guess what? You still got to review the movie. You've already started the stream. You can't.
What about this bayonet?
Oh, I'm going to review all the Godzilla movies. No.
Don't you see how pretty it is? And how nice it would be if it just... I'm going to get you one of these days, boy. Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to the latest installment of the Heisei Godzilla re-review series. And today, in case you haven't noticed, we're in for a really rough ride. A very, 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 very rough ride. Today, we will be reviewing 1992's Godzilla vs. Mothra, The Battle for Earth, which is a title I really fucking hate. Why can't you just call it Godzilla vs. Mothra? Which is also what the film is known as in some areas.
Well, because the first one's Mothra versus Godzilla. So that's how I remember.
And also joining me today once again is Sean from JT is Reborn, though.
Hello.
I think his new purpose is to just torture me with shitty movies.
Oh, the Heisei ones. I mean, you got me for the Heisei, man.
So, in case you haven't learned by now from previous chats that I've done with Justin Tang and a few posts and videos that I've done, including my original review of this movie, Godzilla vs. Mothra from 1992 is my absolute least favorite Godzilla movie. Not just of the Heisei series, but of the entire franchise. I detest this movie like there's no tomorrow.
What, you don't appreciate Mothra versus Batra? You don't appreciate the evil corporate goon who kidnaps the Shobinjins or whatever you call them, the twin fairies, and he says, we'll pay you a ton of money. You're kidnapping them. How are they going to spend the money if you're going to fucking kidnap them?
No, I do not.
Bummer.
So, once again, I don't really know that much about this movie's production, except for the fact that it originally was supposed to be a standalone Mothra movie, known as Mothra vs. Bagon, which is a monster that has only existed on the screenwriting floor, and that is it.
Yeah, he was in the video games, and then there was like a footage that Toho shot. I've seen this before with Bagon, but it never got released officially.
And this movie is also notable for its return to a more fantasy-based... I wanted Mothra vs. Bagon too. Anything but this piece of shit. It returns to its more family-oriented atmosphere of before the start of the Heisei series, which to some is not a bad thing, and also to others is a bad thing. Me, I do like the campy stuff, just when it's done right. This movie is not done right. And also, although Kazuki Omori did not return as director, he did return as writer for this movie, and he continued his trend of incorporated Hollywood elements into his screenplay, in this movie's case being all the nods to the Indiana Jones franchise, which
Dum, da, dum, dum,
every
da,
time I watch
dum.
this movie, they stick out like a sore thumb.
Yep.
And also, this is the highest... No, hang on.
It's
This
the biggest
is
one of the second series.
This is the highest grossing Godzilla movie of the Heisei series. And it still to this day remains one of the top 5 most highest grossing Godzilla movies. And in general, in Japan in 1993, it was the second highest grossing film in Japan, second only to Jurassic Park, even though this movie came out in 1992, but whatever. Oh my god, I can't believe I actually talked about Godzilla vs. Mothra 1992 in the same sentence with the first Jurassic Park.
I know, this is clearly the better movie.
What has this world come to?
But at the end of the day, they can't all be Godzilla's revenge level of good. I have to say it every time.
So,
I have to.
What is your history with this film?
You know, to tell you the truth, I first saw this movie. God, I was at staying the night at my grandparents' house. They were having Godzilla marathons, and they're showing the Godzilla movies that I didn't own. And I was like, oh, sweet, they're playing Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Oh, sweet, they're playing this movie. Oh, sweet, they're playing vs. Destroya. And then obviously, in the early 2000s, Sci-Fi Channel, around the time Final Wars came out, they started airing these on the Sci-Fi Channel a lot, which was really cool. But this one I ended up watching. I liked it back then. And I can't remember what I said during 30 Days of Godzilla, but I rewatched it again for this video, and it definitely is one of the weakest in the Heisei series. I don't hate it as much as you. I do have my problems with it. It's nowhere near as good as the original Mothra vs. Godzilla. There are some things I do like about it. Godzilla is cool. Batra in his larva form is pretty sweet looking, although the roar is very, very lazy. It's just Rodan's roar repeated. And I'm just like, what's the point? The villains in this movie pales in comparison to what we had in the original Mothra vs. Godzilla, where it was Kenji Sahara and Kumiyama just chewing the scenery and just being deliciously evil villains. This new guy, it's just he doesn't even get his comeuppance. He just cries like a baby, and then all of a sudden, that's it. I mean, it's come on, man. Something more worthwhile. And then you have oh, Mothra is the Earth, and then the Advanced Society built a weather machine. They built the Geostorm, the Dutch boy. And then it went crazy, and then Batra came in, and I'm just okay. The plot's kind of all over the place a bit with this one. There are some decent action sequences, but I just don't like this one as much as the original Mothra vs. Godzilla. So.
Comparing the two movies, Mothra vs. Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Mothra, it really is only night and the best way to compare it is night and day. One is good, and the other is just crap. This movie, of course, being crap. So my history with Mothra vs. Godzilla, as I stated in my previous video, I rented the TriStar dual pack of King Ghidorah and Mothra 92 from Netflix, and it showed up. I watched both of these movies only twice. And I remember liking this one even less than King Ghidorah, even back when I loved every single Godzilla movie. Then this one just kind of eluded me for a long time. And I actually didn't watch it again until I bought the dual pack with the dual pack again from Amazon when I got it. I think it was for my birthday. And I actually did not rewatch this movie after I rewatched King Ghidorah. I waited a little while. Actually, the day that I rewatched the movie, it wasn't even on my disc. My dad and my stepmom, they had Comcast at the time, which also included Xfinity, so I could watch movies on there. And there just so happened to be a big list of Godzilla movies that they had on Xfinity for some reason. So I was like, oh, nice. I can actually watch something good when I'm at my dad's house for once. So, of course, I watched all these movies. Eventually, I got down to Godzilla vs. Mothra. So I rewatched it, and Whoa.
You loved it.
I hated it.
Okay,
I
like, I know you loved it. It's your
absolutely
favorite.
hated the ever living shit out of this movie. Never in my life before that time had I legitimately said out loud, I hated a Godzilla movie until I saw this. So then I didn't watch it again for a little bit. And then I think it was around 2014 actually when I started getting into another Godzilla mood. So I started rewatching the Godzilla movies, and not in chronological order. I kind of jumped from the ones I really liked, then the ones I hadn't seen in a while, and I started watching this one. Oh my god, I just fucking hated this movie. I hated this goddamn movie so much. I cannot put into words how much I despised this movie. Then I let it sit for about another year or so, rewatched it again, and that's when I firmly cemented my decision of this being my absolute least favorite Godzilla movie. That's not to say that I don't enjoy watching reviews about this movie. One that really, really rocked my world was Kaiju Noir's review of this movie for his channel. Sadly, it's been taken down, unfortunately. But
And the 30 Days for Godzilla.
yes, and the 30 Days of Godzilla, of course. But I just don't like this movie. I really don't like. Unlike Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, this movie definitely is a lot more hit and miss of the franchise. There are those out there who, like me, say that this is one of the absolute weakest installments of the entire series. And there are also people out there who say it's flawed, yes, but it is still a fun movie and it's a little underrated. I of course, do not fall into that category.
Mhm.
I,
Yeah.
I, objectively speaking, I definitely do think this is the weakest of the Heisei series. A lot of people say that's Space Godzilla, but I think objectively Space Godzilla is close, even though I do like Space Godzilla. But
I prefer Space Godzilla. That's my favorite Godzilla villain.
yeah, I'll take Space Godzilla any day. And personally, I think Space Godzilla is better, but definitely objectively, I probably still would say that this is the weakest, whereas a lot of people would say it's Space Godzilla, both objectively and personally for Space Godzilla. So with all that said, let's get into the plot of this movie. Surprisingly, it's actually a
Okay.
lot. It's actually a lot more simple than its predecessor, which I like and also don't like, because I definitely feel like it's at this point where Toho is just sort of kind of starting to phone it in, though they thankfully redeemed themselves in the next two movies, but whatever.
That's three.
So, I don't
I
like
didn't like
Destroya.
it.
So,
You don't like Destroy? Destroy has is the most one of the most emotional
let's
films in the
save that for
series.
Destroy. Actually, no, I'll save that when Jack and I review it. So, in mid 1992, following the events of the previous film, I can only assume this takes place maybe a couple of months after King Ghidorah. A meteorite lands in the Ogasawara Trench and awakens Godzilla. And that's it. 6 months later, explorer Takuya Fujito, Indiana Jones ripoff, is detained after stealing an ancient artifact from an old temple, Indiana Jones style. And later, a representative of the Japanese Prime Minister offers to have Takuya's charges dropped if he leads an expedition to explore Infant Island with his ex-wife, Masako Tezuka, and Kenji Ando, who is
Yeah,
the...
there was a funny bit where he's just like, "Oh, I've been through worse. I was married to you." That was one funny line, but continue.
Oh, these characters. Kenji Ando, who is the secretary of the rampacious, I don't even think that's a word, Marutomo Company. Sound familiar? After the trio arrives on Infant Island, they soon find a cave containing a ancient drawing of two giant insects engaging themselves in battle. Further exploration leads them to a giant egg and also a pair of diminutive humanoids known simply as the Cosmos, who identify the egg as, of course, belonging to Mothra. The Cosmos of ancient civilization who attempted to control the Earth's climate, which ended up provoking the Earth into creating Batra.
It went full Geostorm.
Who became uncontrollable and started to harm the very planet that created it. Why does the Heisei Gamera trilogy come to mind for some reason?
Not sure.
I don't like the Heisei Gamera trilogy either.
I love the Heisei Gamera trilogy.
I like 2, that's it. Anyway.
The effects work on that is really well done. But that's Gamera, this is Godzilla.
So Mothra, who was another Earth defender, of course, fought quote.
Is she really, though? I mean, she murders a ton of people in this movie.
It's up in the air. So Mothra fought an apocalyptic battle with Batra, and of course Batra eventually lost because Mothra is protected by plot armor. And the Cosmos explain how the meteorite that landed at the beginning of the movie that awakened Godzilla uncovered Mothra's egg and also may have awoken Batra, wink wink, who is still embittered over humanity's interference in Earth's natural balance. The Marutomo Company then sends a freighter to Infant Island in order to pick up the egg, ostensibly, supposedly trying to protect it. And as they are sailing, Godzilla surfaces. Oh yeah, Godzilla's in this movie. And heads towards the egg as the Mothra larvae inside of it hatches. How convenient. Batra, who had made his first appearance earlier in the film and went on a little rampage throughout Japan, shows up in the middle of the ocean, also as a larva form, soon appears and joins the fight, specifically fighting against Godzilla, allowing Mothra to retreat and slink away elsewhere. And the battle between Godzilla and Batra eventually goes underwater, and where the force of the fight causes a giant crack in the ocean's floor that ends up swallowing the two. Masako and Takuya later discover Ando's true intentions when he proceeds to kidnap the Cosmos and take them to Marutomo headquarters, where the CEO of the company intends to use them for publicity purposes. Once again, sound familiar?
It's the same thing. All of this time, he offers to pay them. I'm like, you're keeping them as slaves. How are you going to pay them if they're just going to be slaves? Like, what are they going to use money on? Buy their freedom? It's stupid. At least we're just going to exploit them. And they're proud of it.
After a little bit, the Cosmos, they sing the Mothra song and they summon Mothra to Japan. And she enters Tokyo in an attempt to rescue the two. However, she is, of course, attacked by the JTF. And the wounded Mothra heads for the Japanese diet building, once again, sound familiar, and starts building a cocoon around herself. Really? Does this sound familiar? Meanwhile, Godzilla surfaces from Mount Fuji, causing it to erupt, in which I will admit that is a fairly cool sight to see. Godzilla has so much of an effect on the world that he's able to make a volcano that's been inactive since 1708 to erupt, and erupt violently. Pretty badass. I'll give him that. So both Mothra and Batra attain their flying imago forms, and they converge at Yokohama Cosmo World. I really don't like how Batra is executed when he attains his flying form, because Mothra takes this elaborate cocoon process to take, whereas Batra shows up and he just he pulls an Ultraman transformation out of his ass and becomes his imago form. Snap the finger, literally. But whatever. So Godzilla shows up and interrupts Batra and Mothra's battle and starts to attack Batra. And the two Moths decide to join forces against Godzilla, kind of reminding me of Batman versus Superman. And eventually
Batman and Superman's Mothra.
Yeah, Mothra and Batra overwhelm Godzilla and they start to carry him over the ocean. However, Godzilla bites into Batra's neck and fires his atomic ray into the wound, which ends up killing Batra. In a rather quite
cool to do.
In a rather quite brutal scene, as you see Batra biting into Godzilla biting into Batra's neck, and you see this yellow blood spurting all over Godzilla's face. So Mothra drops Godzilla and the lifeless Batra into the water below. God, this is sound. The surface by creating a mystical glyph with scales from her wings, which, judging by the next movie, proved to not work. And the next morning,
it may cause more problems.
The next morning, the Cosmos explained that Batra had been waiting many, many years to destroy an even larger meteorite, which would threaten the Earth in 1999. Mothra had promised that she would stop the future collision if Batra were to die, of course. And she and Cosmos and the Cosmos leave Earth as the humans bid farewell, thus ending the movie. And this plot point is never brought up again in the rest of the series. So how about this plot? Does it sound familiar?
Well, it basically is kind of a remake in some essence of the original Mothra.
It's both the original Mothra and the original Mothra versus Godzilla rolled into one, while also using the Mothra versus Bagon script and the unused Mothra versus or Godzilla versus Gigamoth script. It's a fucking mess. It is a complete fucking mess. So, with all of that said, let's get into the pros and cons of this movie. Go ahead, Sean. Tell me the pros.
Pretty cool. I do like the design of Batra in his first form. I honestly feel like Batra should have stayed in his larva form. I thought he looked way more menacing and intimidating, more powerful, and more of a legit threat against Godzilla than he did in his bat form. Although, granted, he could fly. I thought that he just looked way more imposing and cool. Mothra, I know, I think I've said before, sometimes, Mothra...
You're not a big fan of Mothra.
Mothra's grown on me more and more over the years. I've grown to appreciate Mothra, after, rewatching the trilogy and that. So I still like Mothra. I mean, I wasn't, a huge fan when I was younger because I wanted Godzilla to win instead of Mothra. But, over the years now, I've grown to appreciate Mothra more and more. And I look forward to seeing Mothra in, the upcoming Godzilla King of the Monsters. I think that's going to be amazing.
I hope she dies.
Yeah, we'll see. I think she's going to have some sort of connection with some of the characters, like Millie Bobby Brown. I think she will, but we'll see about that. But yeah. So it is I do like the music. Akira Ifukube, the man can do no wrong in terms of his Godzilla music. He's definitely bringing it's not his best score of the Heisei series. I think the one after this, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, his score is off the wall, amazing in that one. He's at his A game, he is bringing it, and then even Destroyer, for the emotional sequences, he, I don't know, when the Requiem track and when Junior dies, that shit, hits the heartstrings, because we've grown to, watch Godzilla and that grow over the course of the Heisei series. That's one thing I do compliment about the Heisei series, since it's a singular continuity. You see things develop over time, you see Junior grow from, his birth all the way to, his death, and then, rebirth into the true Godzilla. And I appreciate that. But other pros, the action sequences are decent. They're not the best of the Heisei series. I think they did get better in the next movie. But it is cool to see, I like the scene where Batra drops the Ferris wheel on Godzilla. I thought that was kind of entertaining.
Stunk.
There's some good there's a few decent military sequences, with Batra, in Godzilla fighting underwater. I think the monster battles are the only really watchable parts of the movie. Although I do like some of the music, but when the monsters aren't necessarily on screen, it definitely drags, and it's definitely one of the lower points of the second series. It just doesn't reached the level of greatness as I know I keep bringing this up, but the original Mothra vs. Godzilla is so much better on like pretty much all fronts. Definitely like it just is. Like I said, there are some badass sequences like where Godzilla comes out of the volcano. I like that scene. And Godzilla ripping Batra's throat right out, full blown like Roadhouse style with his jaw.
I need to watch that
cool.
movie again. Roadhouse is such a great movie.
Roadhouse is fucking awesome. Rule number 3: be nice.
What if someone calls my mama a whore? Is she?
Be nice. Yeah, something like that. But anyways, yeah, Godzilla's cool. I like I said, I can go for some good old monster battles. But this one's just the human stuff really drags. It's the preachiness definitely goes overboard a bit, but we'll get to the negative stuff when we get to the negatives. But yeah, like Godzilla's cool, and I like some monster battles. The brutality of how he takes out Batra. The musical score is nice. Even like the updated Mothra song, it's not as good as when the Peanuts sing
I actually do prefer this new Mothra song over the original. I will wholeheartedly admit.
I like this one. I still like this one though, but I still prefer like the old one a bit. I like it. Both are really good. But like I said, the music, some of the technical stuff is fine, but yeah, I'll give compliments in that regards. So those are my pros.
Well, surprisingly, I have 4 pros about this movie, unlike the 3 that I have for the previous. However, 3 of them are the same pros that I have for the previous film, and one of them only has to do with one character in this film. So I'll get to that one first, and that is Batra. Aside from his shitty roars, which I will get into when I get to the cons, I actually kind of do like Batra. I think Batra is kind of an underrated monster. Mainly just due to the fact that it's a nice idea to have essentially an evil twin that goes for Mothra. I've always considered to be Mothra the goody-goody two-shoes of the yin and yang, the Japanese yin and yang. Of course, the yang being Batra. It's a shame that Batra is only used in this one film. Sure, he's had a couple comic book appearances, but I don't consider those part of the series. So it's a bit of a shame that Batra only showed up in this movie. But my issue with Batra is he's a very bland monster. He doesn't really have that much of a personality outside of I'm just here to destroy shit because I'm evil and it's what I was created for. But then they'll try to force some characterization onto him in the last 10 minutes and have him be friends with Mothra and join her in her crusade to fight Godzilla. Honestly, it feels very forced and it feels very shoehorned, and I really do think that Batra could have been executed better. And I also do think that of the 2 flying kaiju in this movie, he is the better executed. So kudos to Koichi Kawakita for that. But Batra, he looks cool. I like his power set. I like his imago form far better than, I like his larval form far better than his imago form. I think Batra actually looks intimidating as his imago form, or not imago form. Goddamn, why do I keep wanting to say that? His larval form, whereas his flying form, it just loses a lot of the. It loses a lot of
he looks
the.
Weaker.
Yes, he looks weaker. Actually, on a technical, he trades his horn lightning for his eye beams in imago form, which he could control those beams a lot more, but he trades 2 attacks for just 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I always felt that was really disappointing, but I really do like Batra's larval form. His imago form is okay. So that's the first thing, and also the other 3 pros are the effects, the music, and the monster fights. The special effects, they are quite a bit of a step down from the previous film, which is one of the few good things I had to say about King Ghidorah. The effects here, they're not terrible, but they're definitely not as good as the previous movie. At times, they do come off as being rushed. The Godzilla suit, I can't remember the name of this one. It ultimately does, like, it looks very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if it is the same suit that they use for the next movie. And also, Godzilla gets a different roar in this movie. It's more like the 70s Godzilla roar, and it's not the growly bear-like Godzilla roar that he had in the previous 3 movies. Perfectly honest, I never really liked that roar, even in Biollante, as much as I love Biollante. I always preferred this version of the Godzilla roar from here onwards for the Heisei series, mainly because I grew up with Mechagodzilla 2. So, what was I going to say? Shit. But the special effects just overall, like I said, they're not terrible, but they are a bit of a step down. The explosions look fine. The beam effects look fine. And also, speaking of which, this is where Koichi Kawakita started to really rely on beams for the monster combat.
Beams, though.
This, of course, starting what fans like to call Godzilla vs. Mothra being the first of the Beam Wars trilogy. Cue the lightsaber sound effect.
You know what? The beams look great. That's one thing I'll give about the Heisei.
Thing is, yeah, me
visually
too.
great to look.
I like beam spamming. I this may sound a little stupid. I like the pretty colors, and I love a good beam attack. Though I do agree that you do have to have a good balance between long-ranged beam spamming and also close quarters hand-to-hand combat. So you do have to have a good mix of both. This is something that the Ultraman franchise does a fantastic job at doing. But I don't really mind beam spamming that much, though I will admit
Dragon Ball.
I will admit in Space Godzilla that probably suffers from the worst of it. Especially towards the end of the final battle with Godzilla and Mogera versus Space Godzilla. It does drag a little bit because it's just nothing but beam spamming, but whatever. That's for Space Godzilla. So special effects, they're not bad, but they're a step down.
Okay, then. But yeah, that's one thing. That is an interesting, too. Like, this is the first time Mothra gets, like, a beam attack.
I do like that about this version of Mothra is that she has a beam attack. I don't like Mothra being just a pure physical fighter. We got plenty of physical fighters in the Godzilla series. Let's have a fight.
Like with a advantage. So I appreciated when Rodan got an atomic breath, and his fire breath, and then Mothra had a beam attack. I'm like, you know what? You're updating it. The beams they just fucking look cool. They just look great on screen.
Yep.
So I'm like, just spam it with beams. Like, I just like the way they look. Like the masers and that, they all look.
Oh terrific. Yeah, I love the laser cannons.
They just look great.
Pro number 3 is the music score by Akira Ifukube. Well, this is definitely my least favorite, it's tied with Destroya as my least favorite score that Ifukube did for the Heisei series. It still is a pretty solid score overall. There's a lot of really familiar Ifukube themes used from previous films, updated for the 90s, specifically for Mothra vs. Godzilla. That's fine because this is a Mothra movie. That would make sense that Ifukube would use Mothra themes for this film. Of course, they bring the Godzilla theme back. The only one I really don't care for is Batra's theme. I just think his theme is really repetitive. But overall, the score for this movie, it's not bad. It is enjoyable to listen to. Like I said, I do like the new Mothra theme that they use for this movie. It's not my favorite Mothra theme. It's probably my third favorite, but I really do like the theme for this movie. And also pro number 4 is the monster battles, all 2 of them. I'm noticing a trend here. I swear I'm noticing a trend here. They're really they're not really, but they're fairly entertaining. I actually prefer the fight between Godzilla and Larval Batra because I just think, one, I like that design for Batra more, but I just think that fight is better executed. The fight with both Imago, Batra, and Mothra, it's entertaining, but this may sound blasphemous coming from me, but I actually do think it kind of drags, to be 100% honest. Like, it starts out good.
It's very staticky. Like, it's like they're not really doing much because they're two flying monsters.
Yep.
But even then, flying monsters, like if you go to the original Mothra vs. Godzilla, Mothra is like going ham at Godzilla, like knocking him over, using their wings. Everything is really fast paced. They're going crazy. But like this one, it's just like they're really stationary. Like it's like two stiff action figures that have like no like bendability, whatever you call it, like no flexibility in it, and they're just really staticky. And I'm just like, that's why the beam attacks, I'm like, they have to make up for the lack of it with beam attacks. And when it's beam attacking, I'm like, okay, I'm down with this. But I feel like there should have been more, hand to hand combat,
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, the fight starts out decent, but after like 8 minutes, it really starts to drag, and it really starts to just. It really causes me to lose interest. But overall, the monster battles are fun. But that's really all the good things that I have to say about this movie.
Oh, you got 2 comments there for you.
Yes, I know. I saw them.
So would you'd rather watch King Kong vs. Godzilla? I'd actually rather watch King Kong vs. Godzilla.
No, I would not. Oh, God. I don't know.
See, I liked that one a lot when I was younger. Like, that was, like, my favorite.
So what are your cons for this? Actually, can I get through mine first? Because I have 8.
We'll switch it up.
I have 8 cons with this movie. It's probably the most I'll ever have for any Godzilla movie. So con number 1 is the sound effects used for this movie are fucking horrible. The laser effects for the military vehicles, those are fine. The beam sound effect for Mothra's antennae, those sound fine. And also for Batra, I guess they're kind of okay, but the roars, except for Godzilla, the roars for this movie are terrible, and Godzilla's beam sound effect is really distracting. Before, it sounded like Godzilla's atomic ray sound effect, it sounded kind of like static. Here, it sounds just like a generic laser beam effect, or sound effect. And really distracting. Mothra's roar at times devolves into Anguirus's roar. And whoa, does it stick out like a sore thumb. And then, of course, Batra's roar being a reused Rodan roar. Really distracting and really sticks out like a sore thumb. Does not fit Batra's design whatsoever. The sound design for this movie is horrendous. Con number 2, this movie is horrendously paced. Absolutely, but the fuck, horrendously paced. Very, 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 very draggy. Very, very, very slow. And very, very, very boring. This movie does not know whether it wants to be fast-paced or it wants to be slowly paced. It just ends up being this kind of... Yes, unfortunately, Anguirus was attempted to be worked into the Heisei series. It's a damn shame he never was. I really like Anguirus. But
I heard rumors that he might be coming to the Monsterverse, which hopefully that happens.
He could work, too, because he's just... He's strictly a melee fighter.
He would fit in perfectly.
Yes.
Like, he's one that's super easy to do.
Same for Varen, but anyway, that's a different story. This movie's, like I said, this movie's horrendously paced. There's times where it's okay, but overall, it is absolutely horrendously paced. It's very draggy, it's very uninteresting, and it's very, very... It's just crap. Con number 3, the lack of Godzilla. This has, of course, been stated quite a few times throughout the past, is that Godzilla was thrown in just to add more marquee value. Because, well, I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but because this movie was supposed to be 3 other different films, none of them had Godzilla. Well, one of them did, but the other 2 of them didn't have Godzilla in mind. Godzilla really does feel shoehorned into this movie. I would have much rather just preferred if they made a Mothra. If we could have gotten Mothra versus Bagon, that would have been great. Or if they were going to go with Mothra versus Batra, that would have been fine too. But they decided to throw Godzilla in because they needed a Godzilla movie this year. So
Godzilla sells.
But
that's the way it is. I think that's why because Mothra and Godzilla are pretty much like two of the most popular kaiju in Japan. So that's why, they had to fit right here.
But Godzilla truly does feel shoehorned in this movie. And once again, to kind of quote Kaiju Noir, a lot of people bitch and complain about fuck, I lost my track.
Oh, I got a comment there.
A lot of people bitch and complain about G 2014 not having a lot of Godzilla screen time, which admittedly, no, it doesn't. I'll wholeheartedly admit that. But at least Godzilla has a presence in the film, and he has something to do with the plot. And the movie's called Godzilla, and it's at least about him. With this movie, even though he's the top billed monster, he's the one who's shoved the most to the back. This is clearly just supposed to be a Mothra movie. People bitch and complain about that, yet they choose to ignore this. Why? Anyway, so yeah, the lack of Godzilla really, that's truly what makes this movie my least favorite Godzilla movie, is that the lack of Godzilla truly kills it for me. I like Invasion of the Astro Monster, and Godzilla has even less screen time in that movie than he does in this. Yet I consider that to be one of my favorite Godzilla movies. I consider that to be one of my favorites, though, because at least they have interesting stuff going on in the movie to back up the lack of Godzilla. This movie does not. Moving into con number 4, every single character in this movie, outside of the monsters, all suck.
They're just
royally suck balls. It doesn't help that the dub is horrendous. But outside, I mean, I've watched this movie with the original Japanese audio, and all the characters still suck. Absolutely and utterly, royally suck. I agree. The little girl should have been crushed to death. She's so fucking annoying.
Wouldn't that have been ballsy?
All of these characters should have been crushed by the monsters because they all suck. The Indiana Jones ripoff dude, he's an asshole. We're supposed to like him because he's our main protagonist. Thing is, he's an unlikable douchebag. His ex-wife is a bitch.
Wait, we got a comment real quick. I don't know, Justin. Hollywood did do Stephen King's It, and they murder Georgie violently at the very beginning of the movie. So they do have some balls sometimes.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
But his ex-wife is a bitch. Really fucking annoying. Her dialogue is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Again, her dubbing's horrendous too. She's just a bitch. I hate bitchy women. Their daughter is so fucking annoying. She feels like a kid out of a Gamera movie. Actually, this entire cast feels like they're out of a Gamera movie.
See, this is
the worst of the worst. Let's see. The secretary from the main secretary from this company that is trying to steal the egg, he's really bratty, really bitchy, and really whiny. Like, there's one scene where he says, "Oh, God, what am I going to tell my boss about this?" Really, dude?
His boss, too.
His boss character is really annoying, too. Thank God he doesn't have that much screen time. And it also doesn't help that he's an asshole, but he doesn't get any comeuppance.
No, it makes me miss the bad guys from the original Mothra vs. Godzilla so much more.
Bring them back, please. I'm actually going to quote that
Hara
movie.
was still alive.
Torahata Kumayama, where are you? Come out.
I fucking love those guys. Like, they're so great. Like, Kenji Hara, just like, he's just smug and arrogant. Like, when he's even on the phone talking, he's just loving it. He's just like enjoying being a rich asshole, and he was loving every minute of it. This is the problem with this movie. The bad guy is just, he's bad. He doesn't have any charm or charisma. He's not like a Dick Jones from RoboCop, or the same actor. He's not like a
watch
Ronnie
that
Cox
movie
villain.
again too.
He's not like a Clarence Boddicker. He's just there. He's cookie cutter.
Yes.
And he gets no comeuppance. Nope. And then, like, at one part, he's just like, go ahead, destroy the city. I'll just rebuild it. Like, you do realize it's going to cost you a ton of money, dude. You're going to go bankrupt. I'm like, fucking idiot.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So, con number 5 is, of course, the messy script. As I mentioned before, this movie was supposed to be 37 other movies before it became this. It's a hybrid of...
38, Nick.
I think it's 37. So, yes, of course, this movie was originally supposed to be Mothra versus Bagon, which I really, really, really would have loved to see. However, then they also had the idea of doing Godzilla versus Gigamoth, which would have pitted Mothra against Godzilla and an irradiated Mothra doppelganger, known, of course, as Gigamoth, though this, too, was rejected early on. Then they decided, hey, we haven't had a Mothra movie in a while, so let's do this movie. And then, of course, that's how it got made. This movie script, not only is does it borrow elements from the Gigamoth script and also the Mothra versus Bagon script, but it also borrows elements from the original Mothra and the original Mothra versus Godzilla. To me, that just screams laziness. Really, you're going to borrow elements from far superior films and also far superior scripts that would have made much more interesting movies to make this piece of shit? Why? Just why? Are you that fucking lazy? Whatever. 1, 2, 3. Con number 6, Mothra. I can't stand Mothra in this movie. Her larval form looks fine, but her imago form looks like shit. To quote James Rolfe, it looks like a fluffy bunny piece of shit. I don't like the material that they used for Mothra's fur. It just looks like sheep's wool, but shittier than that. Vibrant blue, but other than that, that's it. I think this might be Koichi Kawakita's either second or third worst flying. No, yeah, third worst flying kaiju that he's ever done, because Mothra's wings, they move very, very stiffly and very, very slowly. She just looks like shit. And there's also a lot of moments where I can see the wires that are holding her up, as well as Batra as well. I just don't like Mothra. Not to mention, I just don't like her personality in this movie. She's very, very she's too goody two shoes, and that drives me insane.
No, she's not. She murders a ton of people.
Yeah, that is true. So she also suffers from having bipolar disorder as well.
Okay, that's the thing that irritates me the most about Mothra more than anything, is they portray her as the most goody-good monster on the planet, and yet she's going through rampaging and killing everyone. Yep. Everyone. I mean, at least Godzilla takes no shame in it. Just like, but like her, I mean, they're just constantly like, Mothra, the good monster. Like, Mothra just went through a rampage to the entire city because you people were singing. Yeah.
Also, not to mention, like, here's the design. One issue that I have with this Mothra design is that her main body is way too small, and her wings are fucking gigantic. Because
she was big in the original Mothra vs. Godzilla. She matched up better.
Yes. Her body is too small, way, way too fucking... Batra has the same issue, too. But at least he kind of makes up for it because he has large legs. Mothra does not. Mothra's has too small of a body with way too large wings. I just don't like Mothra in this movie. I think she looks like crap. Wait, hang on a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay, never mind. I lost track. 6 or not 6. Con number 7 is the really forced environmental message that this movie has.
Oh,
Surprisingly, I never picked up on this until I rewatched the film after I watched Zazubar's Godzilla Palooza episode. This movie has a surprisingly forced environmental message. Not quite as bad as
Godzilla.
Yeah, not quite as bad as Godzilla vs. Ghidorah, thank God. Now, I love that movie, but that is an issue that I have with that film, is that it's very, very shoved down your throat. But this movie, it's about as shoved down your throat as Gamera versus Ziggler.
But they were in LC when they made that one, so they didn't necessarily know all that they were doing.
This movie's environmental message is about as forced as Gamera versus Ziggler. Ironically, Gamera vs. Ziggler also came out in 1971, same year as Spectre Man has it pretty forced too, but ironically same year as Godzilla vs. Ghidorah. But this movie's
check out Spectre Man.
This movie's environmental message is really shoved down your throat, and of course, this movie suffers because of it. And also, what makes it worse is that we don't really see any of it. We see some shots of forest fires and earthquakes. But other than that, this message that's so shoved down your throat, it feels even more pointless because we don't see most of it. At least with Ghidorah, as forced as it is, we see it.
You see how shitty Japan looks.
We see too much of it, but at least we see it. Here it's the exact opposite. We don't see enough of it.
Yep.
And the last con that I have for this movie is the English dub. Oh my God. The English dub for this movie is fucking atrocious. Not much to say about it. Probably because it's on par with King Ghidorah's script. It's got just as much cringy dialogue. It's got just as much bad voice acting. It's got just as much pacing issues with its dialogue. It's got just as much corny one-liners. It is just absolutely horrendous, and it completely takes me out of the movie. And yes, the only Heisei dub that I think is legitimately good is 1984. For the most part, Biollante and Mechagodzilla 2. And also Mechagodzilla 2.
Mechagodzilla has funny moments, like dubs. So, this one is just kind of cringeworthy.
Yes.
So, Mechagodzilla 2 has some funny moments.
Has a couple funny moments in it, yes, but I do think the dub for that movie overall is really, really solid. But still,
it's not too bad.
That's all the cons that I have for this movie. Lack of Godzilla, the sound effects are terrible. Mothra looks like shit. The script is a mishmash of lazy, rehashed ideas. All the characters suck. At least with King Ghidorah, we had M11. Here we don't even have that.
We had Mickey Sagusa, your favorite character.
I fucking hate Mickey Sagusa. Fuck you. The pacing is horrendous. The environmental message is really shoved down your throat. And the English dub is absolutely fucking atrocious. Do you have any cons, or did you already get all that you needed to say out of the way?
Alright, let's go through some of the cons. So, con number 1, it's not as good as Godzilla's Revenge. I have to work at it every single time. But anyways, the Cuban characters are pretty bad. Akira Takarada's in this movie, and he does nothing.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. Akira Takarada returns for this movie. He doesn't do shit.
He does nothing. He didn't even need to be there. It's almost like a cameo that could have been cut. Oops. Spoke too soon. But, yeah, fucking Akira Takarada's in this movie, which, by the way, kudos to that dude. That dude did not age at all in, 30 years. You see a little bit of gray in his hair. He aged remarkably well. So
he looked good in Final Wars, too.
I'm like, this dude did not age at all, 60 years. He was found the Fountain of Youth or something over in Japan. I don't know. Maybe I gotta be like.
Well, it was only 28. It was only 27 years. I think.
Yeah,
No.
like I said, it wasn't too long of a difference, but still, it did not age like much at all. Like Keanu Reeves just doesn't
25
age.
years, excuse me. So actually, he could have only been in his 50s, maybe early 60s at the time.
I don't know. I think 50s, but then again,
maybe.
Whatever. But that dude aged like a champ. So good for you with Karateka about it. Good for you, and I hope you feel better. I heard you couldn't make G-Fest this weekend. So, but yeah. Anyways, cons of this movie: the human characters are just forgettable. Like none of them are really great. The main dude is okay. Like when he's shitting on his wife, who's being a bitch. I enjoyed that. So that was funny. The Cosmos. They're not too. They're decent. They're the Cosmos. Like I like them more in the older Showa era films. Mothra, the fights. There are some like problems with Mothra. Like I said, I hate the hypocrisy where Mothra is praised as this good monster when she's killing everybody in sight. That always kind of bugged me. The fucking main villain doesn't get his comeuppance or anything with him whatsoever. He's so flat. Like he could have been. You could have made him just the most unlikable asshole. If he was fucking Dick Jones from RoboCop level piece of shit, we would have had something special. Because Dick Jones is like, he's great. Like I mean, you've seen RoboCop. You like RoboCop, right?
Of course, it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Dick Jones in that movie is a piece of shit. Like he's so unlikable, but he's so much fun to watch. You just love. I love 80s villains because they were so not cookie cutter. They went the extra mile. This fucking guy does not go the extra mile. Him and his stupid stash, and he's just like, kill everybody. And I'm just like, what are you talking about, dude? His motivations make no sense. The things with the fairies, just like, I'll pay you handsomely, but I'm going to kidnap you. It doesn't make any sense. You don't pay him at all if you're kidnapping him. Fucking idiot. Like I said, some of the action can be kind of flat. Batra's the roars are really lazy. Changing it from just making it Rodan is kind of lame. And pacing issues definitely drags a lot in certain areas. The Godzilla stuff I like, the beams I like, but this one's just like when you compare it to the next movie where there's a shit ton of Godzilla, like a ton of monster action. I mean, you're definitely like this one feels like a huge step down. It's a step down from the previous one. It's nowhere near as good as the original Mothra vs. Godzilla. I don't hate this movie, but I don't really love it either. So,
I don't like this movie, if you can't tell. I really don't like this movie. I think it easily is the weakest of the Heisei series, without a shadow of a doubt. Thankfully, it gets better from here on out. Well, it gets better with the next two movies, then it goes downhill again with the last. And then, personally, I believe it goes way up, at least in terms of entertainment, when it comes to 98. But we'll get to that at a later date.
No. With Matthew Broderick. That's a lot of fish, guys. The series was good. The series of Spawn was good. But the movie, no.
So, with this being my absolute least favorite Godzilla movie, I, of course, will be giving this a 1 out of 10. My all-time least favorite Godzilla movie, bar none. Thankfully, the franchise has never gotten this bad from here on out. Moving on. What do you rate this movie, Sean?
Let's see. What did I give Godzilla vs. Megalon? I think I gave that
I think you gave it a 6.
Cheesy, I think 6 in terms of like cheesy entertainment value, and then with just objectively it's like a 4. So I'll give this one a 5. I think just a 5 it's just average. Just average across the board. It's still Godzilla, so I still get some good stuff with it. Good like FAQ-based stuff. But it definitely is one of the weakest in the Heisei series. If not, it's either the weakest or the second weakest. Like this one and Biollante my two least favorite of the second series.
I like Biollante, so bleh.
Yeah, see, Biollante, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I didn't see it till like years later, and I just felt like it really, really dragged. And then I was just like, it's Godzilla stuff. But like, Biollante is pretty cool. Oh, my bad, Sean. Sorry. And my bad, Justin. Oh, I'm just reading the comments.
I can't find my shades. Fuck it. So that'll do it for this review. It turned out to be a lot longer than I intended it to be. Join me next time when we talk about a so far superior movie. A so much better movie in every single motherfucking way possible. When we talk about the 1993, in my opinion, epic masterpiece. Complete epic motherfucking masterpiece. That is, in my opinion, the best of the Heisei series. One of my all-time favorite Godzilla movies ever made. And once again, Sean will be joining me for that. When we talk about 1993's Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2.
Even though it's the third movie with Mechagodzilla.
So post your fucking comments down below and let me know what you think. Do you hate this movie? Do you like this movie? If you like this movie, please tell me. I'd actually be interested to hear why. Despite the fact I don't like this movie, if people like this, that's fine. Hell, I like Godzilla Raids Again.
Yeah, and I'm not the biggest fan of Godzilla Raids Again. I don't hate any Godzilla movie. Well, 98. In some ways, I don't hate it now. Like, I mean, as a Godzilla movie, it's not very good. Like, if it's like its own standalone kaiju type movie, it's okay. But as a Godzilla movie, it fails miserably.
So, Sean, you have anything to pimp out?
Yeah. So, what's up, everyone? Thank you for joining me for this video with Nick and stuff. It's fun. I love talking Godzilla. This is fun. So I'll be back when we talk about Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, and then there's some other ones I'll be appearing in. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. You can check out my channel. I left some comments, so you can just click on that and watch me there. And I got some more stuff planned out. I said this last night. I have some Halloween reviews, and then I got after the movie coming this week. I'll be watching Skyscraper, so you can watch.
I want to see that. That looks like an entertaining movie.
The next Rocksploitation movie.
Hey, you gotta love The Rock.
Yeah, The Rock. I smell what The Rock is cooking with his next movie.
I still wish I could meet him. He looks like a really, really cool dude.
He seems like if I could hang out with like anyone, I'd be him and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep, me too.
Yep. Just those two. But yep, that's all I gotta say. Thanks for having me, Nick.
And as always, go out and be a ripoff of Indiana Jones, then get hooked up with your blood-sucking ex, and then get involved with the giant kaiju flying shitty monster debacle. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. I don't have my shades on me, obviously.
Quick through the people's eyebrows. They're asking in the comments.
Oop, there it is. So speaking of which,
Nick, you gotta do the people's eyebrow.
do you smell what The Rock is cooking? I'll see you guys in the next one.
Wait, one last thing. I do the people's eyebrow. I'm doing it right now, but you can't see me. So.
You don't do it right. I'll see you guys later, guys.